The recording is in progress, and this is a special podcast brought to you by the 4Bs, because all 4Bs are here. Yes, that's right. Yes. Mr. All In, aka the $1 trillion man, Dr. Evil 10%, aka the people's champ, myself, Sir Never Look, aka the excellence of execution, and she is back with a vengeance, here for your listening pleasure and for your viewing eyes. You've never seen her before, some of you. Yes, you regular listeners, Mrs. No Show is in the building. Now that is how you start the 4Bs.
How many pods ago was it? Is it 64?
I did
Maybe
3. So the first
pods.
three.
It would have been
68.
better if you turned up 69 later.
Do you know what? Honestly, in the notes it said 69. There were some notes about 69. I was like, no.
That is because we've already got 69 lined up.
I mean, this has got way more professional since the last time I showed up.
Yeah.
I'm intimidated.
Well, I was going to say,
I put back in some of those early ones. I've gone, these are the ones that you're meant to record and never release for a reason. Like they should just.
Yeah.
We're much better. We've actually got.
They were raw. Yeah, they were super raw.
is it ones where we're talking about how we should start staking DAO and other shit like coins?
I think it was a lot worse than that. It was like,
Definitely worse.
It was cancel vision, wasn't it, really?
We
We were in lockdown.
We didn't even have an agenda. We just came on and just chatted shit. For hours.
To be fair, that was fun.
Well,
But yeah,
Wasn't
we
the
always
first show
talk
like
shit.
3 hours long?
Yeah, they were
It's
really
like-
long. as
Like
well.
an Avengers trilogy.
yeah.
And but nothing happens.
But nothing happened. Yeah, like an Avengers trilogy.
Like the Hobbit.
So we do need to ask Mrs. No Show, where have you been? What Bitcoin news have you got for us? Anything that you want to share?
I left at episode 3 and we were like twice the price we are now, and I'm back at episode 68 and it's shit. So
He has. You have come back a lot leaner than last time.
2 stone down.
Thank you.
2.5 actually.
You need to put that 2.5 stone back on so the price goes up.
Yeah.
That's what it was. Every time I lost £1, Bitcoin lost 10 points. So,
Yeah. So put on 5, you're on the KFC diet every meal.
What's the Bitcoin clock saying, Mr. Orlin?
Well, it's a bit sad. Actually, it's just ticked over to 19k. It's read 18k the whole of today. But it's 19k and $56.
Okay. I told you about my issue the other week about having to, I had to sell a little Bitcoin to put in my bank. So I'm now putting back in microdoses. So I'm buying back in. So my whole mantra of not looking, I'm having to look. So I'm every day DCAing 100 quid away. But over the weekend, when it went down to close to 15s, I was there. I was in there with the micro bids. So I'm back in.
Yeah, well, today's been another little dip day. I must admit I didn't have any internet. I haven't had internet for most of the week.
I don't know how you're breathing, but you're still here. Good for you.
So it goes down all week apart from the pod. Is it that your service provider absolutely hates you because you're a cunt, and but they really like the pod?
I've actually had the conspiracy theory with the missus that they put me down because I upload the pod and I use loads of bandwidth because I upload it to various places. And I think they see me in the middle of nowhere. I probably take down half of my neighborhood doing it.
Yeah.
And they're like off. And on Wednesday, I go down and I wake up and the internet's off. I'm like, and it takes me the whole week. On Tuesday, I get it back on, and they're like, maybe he'll be well behaved now. Do the pod, do the upload, and they fucking switch me off on Wednesday again. So
Is it? Are you a bit of me, bit in the middle of nowhere?
yeah, totally middle of nowhere. Yeah.
He's killing all the farmers. Like,
Who's the internet
they're sitting
provider?
there streaming their
Who's the
Netflix. And
No, it's airband. And to be honest, I don't want to slag them off too much because they're literally the only provider that will do my house. So if I would love to have just gone, go fuck your service, I'm moving. But I can't. Like if I do that, I have no one. So if anything, I'm ringing them up going, my service is really bad. And I pay more that it's better. Like, what do I need to do? Which dick do I need to suck? I just
I thought you only did that for Sats.
I'll do it for many things, really.
Are you losing Twitter followers as we speak and the vibe? I mean, the agenda was short, I guess, as well, originally because of this.
Yeah, well, ever since moving out here anyway, like Twitter's become like much less. I've been like out and about quite a lot. But yeah, obviously, like the last pretty much 2 or 3 weeks, I've probably had internet for about 4 days of that.
But you've smiled more.
Yeah. But I've corrected less people that were wrong on the internet.
I was going to say, I still see a lot of comments from you on Twitter, so you're obviously still getting your feed.
There's a lot of shit today.
It's really sad, but every single comment you're reading is, I am out on my driveway, pointing my phone at a very specific direction. I get 2 bars of 3G, about 10 tweets come in, and I can reply, and they go into the send box, and I just stand there for about 5 minutes, and they go into send. So every tweet you've seen, that I've literally been doing that. So that is how addicted to Twitter I am. Sometimes I'm doing this at 11 o'clock at night, literally.
And you don't even have phone reception. You've got no internet and no phone.
That's the worst thing about having the internet off. And inside the house, 0 signal for any.
Is there a better network?
That's a schoolboy error, that though. Like, you should always check the phone reception before you buy the house.
I know. Well, I did check it.
But when you're buying a bit of a dream house, though, because it hit all your criteria, is a bit of a secondary. Like you can probably maybe find a different carrier, or you can buy one of those booster aerials. For
I was going to
say
the booster aerials.
Yeah. Exactly. Like when you have a list of criteria and it all gets ticked, and then the phone signal one doesn't, you're like, provide the internet works. He said it did. And to us, like, look, in reality, what am I really using it for? I'm using it for fucking shit posting on Twitter. It's not the end of the
and OnlyFans.
I need to keep posting to my OnlyFans. My OnlyFans subscribers have dropped off a lot, and I'm very sad.
I can just imagine, like, you're on your drive at 11:30 at night, posting, shouting out noob, while your missus just looking out the window.
Yeah. I'm like, I'll come in a minute, but someone is wrong on the internet, and I need to. Someone's crying, the Queen's dead again, and I need to tell them they're a fucking melt. Hold on.
Brilliant. How are you coping with sports as well?
Oh, that's the hardest thing, actually. Like the football, I virtually missed all the last, and UFC. It's a bit of a nightmare. That's the thing that I really missed, actually. I really missed that.
Are you going to have to subscribe to Sky or something?
Yeah, I don't even know if I get Sky out here, but it's all back now. The internet's back. It's all good. I'm back.
All right.
Be good for a day till they take you down. We should be up till 5 o'clock in the morning looking at OnlyFans as well.
The HD porn straight away. And then that's disgusting.
So over the weekend, you were left with Pornhub.
Yeah. Oh my god, that's actually been one of the worst things. I've actually been watching terrestrial TV this week.
Yeah.
A week to be watching it.
Exactly.
Like, every show's getting interrupted with, "Are you crying yet?" With respect for the Queen, are you crying? Like, there's no adverts on TV. It's just, what the hell was going on? Like, I live off YouTube and Netflix and Amazon, so I kind of totally immune to all this stuff on the news. This week, I've had to watch terrestrial TV, and they just chase me around. Even if I don't watch a show that's about that, I'm just trying to watch like Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares 2004. I'm like, fine, I'll fucking watch it. And like in the advert, they're like, "The Queen's dead, lol. Are you crying yet?" No, I'm not. Just fuck off. I want to see an
Did you watch any of it?
Sofa.
Did you watch any of it?
Of course they fucking didn't. Why do I watch that shit for?
My missus, well, she seemed like she really wanted to watch a bit of it, so I saw a bit of it last night. And I suppose 2 things which I picked out was, how fucking much money did they spend on a funeral when they could be dealing with starving families and families aren't heating? You know, think about all that money which got spent. It wouldn't just be 1 million. It'd probably be 10, 20 million or something.
It was more than
Spent
that.
on-
You're into a lot more than that. When you
Yeah.
when you factor in the fact that all the policing and stuff like that, they moved police
But
from Manchester.
Let's not forget the fact that we had an extra bank holiday that wasn't equated for as well.
You're
So
talking
the whole
billions.
nation, the
Talking
whole
billions.
nation stopped.
But throw in that and think like, you know, 10, 20 million, whatever it is. What about all the starving kids? Why aren't we
Yeah.
dealing with that instead? Why isn't she just got a little funeral where there's one camera and her family in an unknown location? Everyone's like, great, we've seen it, bye. But instead, there's this big ceremony which they spend tens of millions on. And then additionally, how many mass were in that cathedral? And bear in mind, the average age was probably about 70.
Yeah.
We'll all be locked in lockdown in 2 weeks.
And don't forget as well, I mean, Charles is 73, and with those sausage fingers, he's got some sort of condition. So this is probably going to play out again in the next 5 years. I'll give him tops, you know. He doesn't look like he's going to be in the best of health. So we'll have another procession for that. And then we've got the coronation coming up next year as well. So
when is
you know,
that? Will we get another bank holiday for that? And will there be another 20 million spelt on a ceremony?
Yeah, so you'll get the bank holiday for the coronation, and you'll get another bank holiday for when he dies. And the whole thing will be repeated all over again. Not to forget that when William becomes king, we'll have another one as well. So don't get too caught up in what's happened today, because there's a lot more to come. It's like the real life Kardashians, isn't it? Really, it's a sitcom.
So it's which royal is going to be the next one who's caught out as a pedo?
One of the things that like my missus pointed out, which I think is just a great analogy for what all this kind of like represented, was there was drone footage of the casket being taken from wherever she died to buried, I don't know, but the roads were there. And there was big yellow patches all over the road, which was like, what are they? And they kind of zoomed in at one point, and essentially what they'd done is they'd filled all the potholes with sawdust and sand, so the horse and carriage could go over it. Okay. And for me, that just represented everything that they were doing right now, right? So they did a bodge job.
Is that really sawdust? I thought it was some kind of like anti-terrorism or something. I saw the sand and I was like, what the hell is it?
I put in the potholes so the carriage didn't tip over and fire the king casket across the hedge or something. And it just represented like,
it would have been funny.
They bodged it for the queen, right? So the queen is important enough to have the potholes filled. We could do this properly. And so everybody else would benefit from no fucking potholes in the road. But we don't care about everyone else. So we're just going to spend the minimum that gets the queen through. And then the first time it rains, it all washes out and the potholes are back. But we don't care about everyone else's cars because fuck the people. You just go, isn't there a better like little microcosm of how much like the elite care about the people, even though they pretend to care about us? It's like, just fix the roads properly. Like they probably spent 10 million on fixing that road and bodging it. They could have spent 20 million and fixed it for everyone. But
I don't know how they'd spend 10 million. It's literally like 5 bags of sawdust.
I can guarantee you they would have paid over the odds.
I mean, you've got to think, rush job as well.
Oh yeah, exactly. You're like, oh, sawdust hard to come by right now. Oh, your poo pennies up. Oh,
finger in the air, you know.
When do you want it? Next week or tomorrow? Oh.
Oh, and you're going to want the premium dust, right? You're going to want the premium sawdust.
You want the shit non-royal sawdust.
Yeah.
It's to wash away twice as quickly, and the fucking plebs won't get any use out of it.
Well, whilst we're talking about royalty, I'm going to seamlessly link to Bitcoin royalty, and that is Michael Saylor, after writing a killer article about the energy that Bitcoin uses. So without further ado, let's jump into Bitcoin mining and the environment. He made some really good points, naturally, as Saylor does. And I think, should we just quickly run through them 1 to 7?
Yeah, go on. Go give us an overview of what the article says.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So Bitcoin energy utilization. So Bitcoin runs on stranded excess energy, which is what is really, really key. So when everyone's saying, oh, it's taking up too much energy, or it's using the energy of like a whole country, well, it's not. It's taking away what the overconsumption of energy that we actually produce in the world. So first of all, shoots that argument down. Secondly, Bitcoin versus other industries. Dr. Evil 10%. Do you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, sorry, I just got one of the notes. So the metrics were 59.5%. So it's been talked about on Twitter that renewable, or I think they named it, what's it, sustainable energy here, is a figure, and it's up year on year from 46%. So that's just significant. And I think we talked about it last week, but was it carbon negative by 2024 or was it later?
Yeah, 2024.
So that is accelerating from being using high amounts of energy, which apparently should be using all the world's energy by now, from the predictions in 2017 or 18, to the fact that it will actually be giving energy back and getting rid of waste. So things like gas flares. So really, really good news around that one. And I think this is what it all hinges on.
Yeah, brilliant. Just in case people don't think like 60% renewable, like benchmark that. Well, no other industry comes close. And you list planes, trains, cars, healthcare, banking, construction, precious metals. Everything else uses way more natural kind of fossil fuels than Bitcoin does. And Bitcoin is the cleanest energy used.
And I think the secondary point on that is Bitcoin could scale to the whole world with the same energy consumption. It's just whether the mining gets more competitive, which would take more energy.
Yeah, there's always that myth, isn't there, that every single transaction and every user means there's more energy. It's like, no, like the same amount of energy that secures a network now could process 1,000 times more transactions. The transactions don't cost money. It's processing the blocks that cost money. And those blocks are going to get filled every 10 minutes regardless. They can't get filled any faster. They have to wait. So the extra transactions will happen on Lightning a layer above, and that is completely immune to Bitcoin mining. So it's very unique in that aspect, really, the fact that you could actually have this, let's say there's like 200 million people that use Bitcoin quite regularly today. That could scale to 8 billion, and the energy usage would stay largely the same. There's pretty much no other technology that would be the case for. It would normally scale in line with adoption, the energy usage, but Bitcoin's actually quite unique in the fact that it's almost topped out on energy usage now. It hasn't topped out on users.
So basically what we're saying is we need to continue a fight against tumble dryers.
Yeah, that.
I literally have mine on right now.
And the other point, which
I'm looking at the smart meter as you're talking, going, let's turn that way.
And then we've also got my favorite, private yachts and planes. So like I said, multiply it by many, and these elites who are telling you are using too much energy while they're flying around on the private jets 4 times a week on their own. So what, like I said, if you're flying on a plane, there's probably 100 to 200 people. If you take it as 200, they taking the equivalent of 200 flights in yours, and they're doing it 4 times a week, whereas you're doing it twice a year. They're doing it 200 times, whereas you're doing it twice a times by 100 again. So you're looking at ridiculous stats. They're taking more flights within a year and using more energy within a year than you would in a lifetime, plus probably you and your street and more.
Yeah, and we should also remember the fact that the SHA-256 ASICs units that are used for Bitcoin mining are becoming more and more efficient as well. And so, as you mentioned, Mr. Rawlin, the fact that we're already at the top of the energy consumption and the utilization of it, that is also really going to get better and better as the ASICs that only have a single purpose for Bitcoin mining continue to get better and better as well.
Yeah, because it's the beautiful thing is the fact that it's always going to be like, it's just the the market will always look for the cheapest energy, and the cheapest energy is energy that people don't want. So that waste energy, and we've just said this a million times, right? But normally, if you're creating energy, you need to be near people, because it's the people that need the thing. Whereas with Bitcoin, you can have your Bitcoin miner in the middle of fucking nowhere, and it doesn't matter. You can mine your Bitcoin. So Bitcoin miners are always going to move to the place that no one wanted the energy. They're going to hunt out, because the market will drive the price of mining down and down and down and down as more and more miners find this cheap energy. So if you are trying to mine in a big city using fossil fuels, you'll be priced out of the market. Your price per mined Bitcoin will be higher than the price that Bitcoin is. So it might restrict your miners off. It's costing you, say, $50,000 to mine a Bitcoin that's worth $20,000. So you literally switch your miners off. You have to go off into the middle of nowhere and find energy that will get you, for every $10,000, you can mine a Bitcoin for $20,000. Now suddenly you're back in business. So the market, even though like Bitcoiners don't really care about this bollocks, we all know it's kind of FUD. The beautiful thing about Bitcoin is it will literally, the energy no one wants is where Bitcoin miners will go.
It's entertaining. I mean, if we compare it against the hoax, which is renewable energy for cars, they're built by fossil fuels. The batteries are built using lithium and cobalt, which are massive problems environmentally. And then they're recharged using fossil fuels. And then I think they struggle to recycle them as well.
Anyway, point 3.
Yeah.
This is a hard one. Point 3.
Yeah. I'll read it verbatim because it's only small, but approximately $4 to $5 billion in electricity is used to power and secure a network that is worth $420 billion as of today, and settles $12 billion per day, $4 trillion per year. The value of the output is 100 times the cost of the energy input. This makes Bitcoin far less energy intensive than Google, Netflix, or Facebook, and 1 to 2 orders of magnitude less energy intensive than traditional 20th century industries like airlines, logistics, retail, hospitality, and agriculture.
Yeah. All he's basically saying, it's like energy in and like product out, like value out.
Yeah.
For the amount of energy that Bitcoin uses, the value out of 12 billion per day is a higher ratio than any other industry. Because again, like even if all this energy that was used was 100% fossil fuels, it's still adding more value to the world than any other product. So you could still justify Bitcoin being a thing. It's not just burning energy for no reason.
But people say it's got no purpose, but you actually go, what the purposes which work in the industry now? You got remittance, and you got bank accounts for the unbankables, people who can't open a bank account. So those are two key uses, which I don't think anyone can dispute.
Yeah, and the numbers, like you could dispute the fact that those use cases are fine, but like it's $1,000 each, and then they could be dismissed. But it's not. Here it is, 12 billion a day and 4 billion a year, or 4 trillion a year. That is a huge amount of money that is being moved and swapped hands. It clearly shows a use case for Bitcoin.
This whole article really reminds me of episode 50, easy to remember, but it's where we actually unveiled the end of FUD link as well, where again we talk about all of the various different objectives that people have for Bitcoin and how you can you can put a finger in the air and point at one, and we can debunk any of them as well. So I absolutely love that Michael Saylor's taken the time to write all of this out and present it in this argument. Objective number 4, Bitcoin versus other cryptos. We won't spend too much time on it, but ultimately it's the proof of work that is the key one here. And obviously we know about the other cryptocurrency that's out there that's moving away, or has moved now away from proof of work to
CBDC coin. I think with this point, it's a good point, but I think people can still argue against this, because it talks about we use proof of work, which is a fair consensus based way of, well, controlling the network, whereas proof of stake is not, it's more centralized. And I think people will dispute that. But the fact is that they don't really understand money. And, you know, this is what I probably say every week now, is until people understand, they're not going to get this point.
This is not a recording from Dr. Evil 10%. He said that live and we haven't just edited it in.
And I say it to people's faces when they're being idiots.
Copy
Yeah.
paste. Copy paste.
You're not ready.
Yeah, you're not ready. You don't understand money. But it is also a fair point. I think we've already covered off the Bitcoin carbon emissions by the fact that Bitcoin will also be, carbon neutral by the year 2024. But this is a new one for me in point number 6, the environmental benefits. Mr. Orlin, do you want to take that?
Well, I think this, again, it just leads into the same thing, really, in the fact that environmental benefits, there's the fact that it's the whole combo, right? It's the whole, like, if you can rely on kind of the fossil fuels plus the green, always in quotation, like wind, hydro and solar. The fact that also Bitcoin uses the waste energy. So it's just, I think it's just, I don't know, I don't think all these points are as succinct as they could be, because
I think you could slim it down. I think you could slim it down into a few bullet points, but I think with this one, like you said, it pretty much is waste energy. But if you apply it to basic economics, which is around scarce resources, which people do argue that Bitcoin shouldn't be using scarce resources such as energy. But the fact is, this is unused resource, which is a byproduct and is still scarce, but Bitcoin is using, is, you know, brilliant.
Yeah, and it just goes out to pollute the earth, doesn't it? Like, you're doing one thing and you're polluting the earth out the back. So if you could get that pollution and just harvest it and make something valuable, then that's why the whole net negative thing came up last week. You know, not only can Bitcoin be like carbon neutral, it can go negative, because it's literally probably going to be powered off in the end 100% waste energy. So this energy literally was not going to be used for anything. It was literally just like exhaust fumes out the back of a car. And
Correct.
Literally using that, like the whole energy was meant to just power the car to go forwards. And off the end of it, you've managed to somehow mine Bitcoin as well. That's essentially where Bitcoin miners are doing, but they're doing it on the side of power plants and gas plants and all that kind of stuff, which is literally, it will probably be, in the end, if you do not have access to waste energy of a gas or oil plant, you won't be competitive in the Bitcoin mining world, which to a certain extent is actually a problem, because it would centralize them around certain places. You almost want it to be more decentralized than that, but that is probably where we're going, because like I said, Bitcoin is going to find the cheapest energy possible, and waste is the cheapest because it's free.
So reading this, Saylor's still entertaining the plebs. How long till he turns toxic and just writes Bitcoin mining environment, you don't get it?
Easy professional.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah,
point 7 though, by the way. His point 7 is good.
Yeah.
The global energy.
Yeah. I think I probably already covered it, but basically it just says, like,
I was going to say, yeah.
like Bitcoin is worth using energy for. Like literally, if it used like 10-20% of all the globe's energy, it would still be worth it, because it's going to give sound money to 8 billion people. And at the moment, that is the most damaging thing for people, is the money and inflation and how governments are abusing it. If we could fix that, then it is worth a shit ton of energy to do so. So the fact that we actually think we're going to be carbon negative by 2024 is just like, this is like, it's almost too good to be true, that you're going to essentially get Bitcoin for free for the world, energy wise. It's kind of nuts.
Yeah.
It's an interesting way of looking at it, because the energy is the first thing that the mainline media falls back on when it's trying to flood Bitcoin. And I feel like it's just like, this article is a once and for all. It's been done to death, but it's like, it's a once and for all. Can we just stop fucking talking about this now? You know, like, seriously, there's 7 points here, which are all fairly clear, and it's the easiest to fall back on, but it's also the easiest to dismantle and disprove. And I think that's what this does.
There you have it, Michael Saylor. And we'll stick with Saylor because the Bitcoin bull himself has only gone and done it. Giga Chad has bought some more Bitcoin.
It's only 6 million this time, though.
Yeah, to the tune of 6 million, but yet it's got him 301 Bitcoin. Just understanding, this is on the MicroStrategy strategy of buying more Bitcoin for the company and not personally for him.
Yeah, I think he ever announces the MicroStrategy ones.
Yeah.
It all comes out for that. But yeah, it's a nice, decent DCA, isn't it? Another 6 million. Although it is funny, like every time he announces these things, the price of Bitcoin dumps.
Yeah.
So he announced this, and the price of Bitcoin dumped by $1,000. It literally happened again. But, yeah, it's almost like someone hates Saylor and has a lot of Bitcoin, and every time he buys, he's like, "I'm just going to."
Almost grey hair.
Because it's literally, if I was a trader, if I saw, I would have an alert set up that if MicroStrategy do an announcement that says Bitcoin in it, I would short Bitcoin, because it just happens. It rebounds quite quickly afterwards, but the 24 hours after announcement, it nearly always goes down 10%, and it did it again.
Maybe they've cottoned on to it and they haven't, and they're double bluffing.
What do you mean? What they
So maybe they plan to buy X amount, but they haven't, and then they go in knowing that it'll dump, and then they buy some more.
Yeah, well, they need to do an announcement that said they were about to. Because unfortunately, they're a PLC company, so they can't.
They are.
Like that.
Yeah.
They can't pretend that they bought it.
They can't.
No.
Tricked you, buying it next week.
That's the math behind the average buy price that they announce as well.
Yeah.
Because they're like, we now own this many Bitcoin at an average buy of this. So
yeah, and their average buy price is at 30,000 still.
No.
We're at 90.
Ouchie.
So they're what's that? Yeah, 33% down.
They must be surely the largest company holding Bitcoin, right?
I think like, as a company that is supposedly non-Bitcoin, yeah.
I think don't Tesla still own Bitcoin, but just not as much?
They do, yeah.
Own hardly any now. They bought $1 billion. It went up to $1.5 billion. Then they sold their billion, so now they own a couple of 100 million. That's it. MicroStrategy own 4 billion here. That's a chunk of change. That.
You may have you've got the likes of the Winklevoss twins, but I think that's personally not necessarily in the company itself.
Yeah, I think MicroStrategy are the largest holders as a company that actually, because like the exchanges own more, but it's not theirs.
Correct. Yeah.
Coinbase. I thought Coinbase do own Bitcoin as theirs.
They probably do, but I don't think they own 4 billion.
It's not my.
In terms of reserves, it's the highest, but it's just high-profile companies, and Tesla is very high-profile, and it still owns hundreds of millions of Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think Square and Twitter own quite a bit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Square.
The old Jack.
And no doubt Stripe as well.
Yeah.
Ross, you're being attacked by a vicious animal.
It's one of the pod's listeners.
Weekly. Okay. So the next story that we've got is, would you reset Bitcoin for a fairer distribution? Interesting question.
Do you know what's really funny? I did a little bit of research before I joined the call, because you guys are really professional now and you actually talk about stuff in a structure. And the first reply to that tweet I saw was Gaz's. I literally clicked the link. I saw Gaz at the top. I was like, brilliant. Copy, paste. I'll say what he said.
I'll let you take it.
The answer is no.
Yeah, I think I looked at answering this and I thought it doesn't really need answering. I think everyone said it. But
I mean, the guy that's posted it was looking to try and trip people up and be like, look at you not adhering to your values, but he's literally totally missed the point of what Bitcoin is. And as somebody just looking that hasn't been on here for ages, and I saw that and I was like, this is literally clickbait. Is this even a serious question? You know?
Yeah, it's not really, is it?
You know, you give the opportunity to reset it. Who do you think's going to buy it first at the quickest possible way? You know, not the people that's supposed to be making the system fairer for.
It's
So
literally implementing a socialist system, and it's what always happens with a socialist system. The most powerful and richest people win and corrupt the system from what's meant to be fair. So I get his point of what he was trying to say is, shouldn't it be reset so everyone gets a go? But the fact is that the billionaires and the powerful will snap it all up, declare it a world currency, and therefore no one else has got any Bitcoin apart from them.
But yeah, exactly. And then what's to stop them doing the exact same thing again in 10 years' time? They're like, oh, we don't know what the price is. Can we just start again? You know,
it
isn't socialist though, is it? It's like the opposite of what socialist is supposed to be. You could argue Bitcoin is socialist right now,
but not socialism.
No, it's literally. I suppose you got socialism, idealism, and socialism. What happens? And I'm talking about what happens. Because it happens every time.
But it was fair, isn't it?
Yeah, you've got
ultimately it was fair when in 2008 the Bitcoin white paper came out, and you could have had the opportunity back then.
You know, I heard about Bitcoin with Mt. Gox would have been like 2012 or so. I could have read up on it. I didn't. I wasn't ready.
Exactly. Yeah. People aren't ready. But I must admit, I like this guy's question because I read it out to a few people just to see what they said, because I think even when I read it the first time, I went, oh. But I read it. I only read it for a little bit and I went, no, you fucking, I see what you're doing. But he just went, imagine the G20 would agree on having Bitcoin as their new gold standard, with the condition to keep the algorithm the same, but start mining from block 1 again to give everyone the same base. Should be 100% in everyone's interests that wants fair money. Would Bitcoiners agree? It's very, very clever, because he basically just goes like, that Bitcoin's a perfect system, right? But at the moment, he thinks, oh, the wrong people have brought too much Bitcoin because not everyone knew about it. So how about we just reset fair money today and just start it off again? But that does mean that your balances also reset to 0 and everyone gets a fair go at getting the Bitcoin. But you just go, once you start thinking through it, not only would obviously the Bitcoin all the billionaires buy it and all the elite buy it, governments would buy it, all that stuff. But you just go, right, who's resetting this?
Yeah. I saw one reply that said that's not a reset, it's a hard fork.
Yeah. Because it's like whoever's pressing the reset button that goes, okay, this is the new fork of Bitcoin that is now the one we're using. Who's that guy?
Yeah.
That fucker.
And it's
because that guy could have changed something, or he could change something in the future. Like all the miners are mining this fork of Bitcoin. They're not mining that fork. You have no decentralization. It's like with a fundamental misunderstanding of Bitcoin comes from this, that you can't just reset it. They've tried to numerous times. That's where all these shit coins have come from. And you can have all that, like a lot of the shit coins have said, oh, this is Bitcoin, but this time you're in at ground zero.
Yeah.
Guess what?
Exactly.
It's just not Bitcoin.
It's one guy that owns all the coins and can just knock the price away.
Pre-mine standard shitcoin.
What you said as well, though, and all the people that are bad-mouthing Bitcoin would be the same people that would rush out and buy it and take it. So the governments, the elites, the billionaires, I'm sure the Warren Buffetts or the Bill Gates of this world.
But when it's reset, it's just not the same. It's useless. Yeah. It's the immaculate conception. And I think one of the things in its benefit is talking about the gold standard, like Bitcoin being the gold standard. I love the gold standard because it sets the standard for money. But if you set it as a gold standard, so it's a Bitcoin standard, it infers that you've still got fiat hinged off it. So it goes, 1 Bitcoin equals 20 grand or whatever it is at the moment. So it's like that kind of string. UK government goes, we're out of money. We're going to make it 30,000 sterling to a Bitcoin. So in a Bitcoin standard in that way, you're still losing. The government has still got too much control to manipulate and be corrupt with that money. So it's basically flawed again, because we don't want to be in anything where there is any fiat. It has to be a Bitcoin standard with sats, and it has to be via the Lightning Network. Otherwise, you're giving control to the nation states to continue with their manipulation and corruption of money.
Yeah, it's interesting. If you read the replies from him to people replying to the tweet, it's so clearly bait. You know, like there is zero integrity in him asking that question. Like, you know, like Mr. Orland said, he's literally worded it in a way to put you in a position where you're like, do I stand by my value, or do I just want number go up? And it's like, actually, it's neither of those two things. It's not either of those two things, you little shit. You know? But you've worded it in a way where I can only answer it that way. So I'll pick number go up. Thank you very much.
Also, it's if we were to reset, it would mean that all of the technology should reset as well, because we come on here and a lot of the time we don't really talk about price. We talk about all of the things around Bitcoin that are going on. So therefore, you know, the fact that we now have cold storage wallets, that wasn't available or made from the inception. The exchanges certainly weren't there. You know, you could mine on your laptop, for example. So all of these things have now become building blocks to make Bitcoin even better and stronger. And yeah, right now the price is down, but the network is getting stronger. There's more adoption than ever, and more people, and the technology is getting greater.
That's the other thing that a reset does, though, and that's a very good point. But what a reset does is that makes it all obsolete, because they'll just be like, oh, by the way, when we reset this, just use your bank account. You don't need a cold storage wallet anymore. You know, and we'll manage the buying and the selling of it, so we don't need the exchanges. You can do that through our platform. So it literally doesn't work, and it undermines.
Well, you wouldn't hold Bitcoin. Bitcoin would be held by the banks and the governments, and you'd be still trending in fiat dollars. Where they would be, we've inflated the supply again. You don't, we're not even going to pin it to Bitcoin. And this issue is they will inflate it and then they'll unpin it, and therefore you're back to pure fiat money again within 50 years.
Yeah, I must admit, I just thought it was quite. When I first saw it, I recognized the guy as a fodder of Bitcoin, and I actually thought it might be him kind of almost coming round to go in, okay, I think I've missed the boat, and I'm always going to try and push for a reset, because I actually do believe in Bitcoin now, but I'd much rather buy it at 1 penny than at $20,000. But yeah, like you just said, like in the replies, it's very clear. It is bait. He's just trying to get us to go, you just care about gains, you don't care about sound money. And you go, unfortunately, we do care about gains, of course we do. But we also care about genuine sound money, and this is the only way to create it. And if you reset it, like, who's the guy that's resetting it? Suddenly you've got to be it again. You've got one guy called Vitalik or something, and he presses the reset button. He's like, don't worry, it's all fine. And you got to just trust this guy. He's not going to print an extra 1 million Bitcoin for himself. Like, who knows if he does? Who knows?
And then you find out there's JPEGs on the blockchain.
You're like, motherfucker.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Are you able to play the next clip, Mr. Orland?
Yeah.
It's only 40 seconds or so, isn't it? So it'll lead us in quite nicely as we're talking about inflating, to move on to Inflation Weekly.
Yeah, let's listen to 47 seconds of Joe Biden be a cunt.
There you go.
Mr. President, as you know, last Tuesday, the annual inflation rate came in at 8.3%. The stock market nosedived. People are shocked by their grocery bills. What can you do better and faster?
Well, first of all, let's put this in perspective. Inflation rate month to month is just up just an inch. hardly at all.
You're not arguing that 8.3 is good news.
No, I'm not saying it's good news, but it was 8.2 or 8.2 before. I mean, it's not, I can make it sound like all of a sudden, my God, it went to 8.2%. It's
It's the
been,
highest inflation rate, Mr. President, in 40 years.
I got that, but guess what we are? We're in a position where for the last several months, it hasn't spiked. It is just barely, it's been basically even.
Mr. President, as you
There we have it. President of the United States.
He doesn't understand basic maths or inflation. You know, like this is, I can't work out whether he's trying to manipulate or he's just that gone.
I think it's manipulation.
Do you know what he should have said? It isn't us. It was a fucking inflation dragon. Came down, fucked shit off, went off, and we're trying to sort it out now.
Right. Is the inflation dragon the name you give to your penis, Biden?
Just hold on. Hold on,
But
I'll
that
say.
definitely doesn't go up a percent every
I
month,
was just
does
about
it?
to say, it wasn't, but it is now. That's
Yeah.
what it's going to be called.
Yeah, when he's at the funeral of a dead grandma and he sees a 5-year-old kid in front of him, inflation dragon go up.
As he's giving her a good sniff.
Oh gosh, yeah. We've got Mrs. No Show back and we get cancelled the day she comes back.
I was gonna say.
I know, and you've said nothing.
I mean, it's what is he saying? It's hovering around 8%, so it's not really inflation, is his excuse. I'm not too
And it's
sure, but he
not
really
gone up.
knows what he's talking about.
We're just lying with data, isn't he? Because what he's saying is like,
Yeah, but is he
the
capable
guy's
of doing
going,
it?
Inflation is the highest in 40 years. He's like, well, month on month, it's only gone up a little bit, like from 8.2 to 8.3 to 8.4. It's like, dude, like inflation is meant to be 2%, not 8.
Yeah, because if you think about it, over a 12-month, which is what we average, it's 8%. And so it's moved along 3 blocks, as in 3 months. And it's saying, well, actually, these from 3 months here are also averaging 8%. So you're now getting a longer period of further inflation. So the prices aren't just staying there. They're going up and up and up with those further blocks.
When
And
you're
that's what he's
already
trying
at the highest.
Yeah, and that's what. So it was, say, £1, and it's added on 3 months at 8% inflation on top. So you've ended up with 2% on top just through those 3 months. So now it's £1 and 2 pence.
But like every week we have this on here, right? Like last week he was trying to claim that the fact that the price had gone up by 300% because it had come back down by 30%. He was claiming that as a victory.
Well,
It's still up 200%, dickhead.
him and the Democrats were trying to say, but they couldn't control gas first, and it wasn't his fault. It was going up, and but then claim victory when it went back down.
Yeah.
Well, that is the bonus item, isn't it? Ultimately, the fact that wholesale gas has gone up by 30%. But to us, the average consumer, and shout out to the Everyday Man, weekly listener, it's still up 170%. So, we are royally, see what I did there, getting screwed.
I hate to say it, it's actually worse than what you just said. The gas price is 30% cheaper.
Sorry, 30% cheaper for wholesale.
Yeah, so it's gone down 30%.
Yeah.
We're paying 170% more. You said it had gone up 30%.
In the last 6
We paid.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it had boomed
our
up.
energy bills should be less than they were 6 months ago, not 170% more. It's
because it
kind of insane.
it had boomed between November and March, hadn't it? So that's when it first went up, was November, because they predicted 4 months ahead of time that the invasion of Ukraine was going to happen. So they had to hike up their gas prices 4 months early because the invasion was coming.
Ukraine.
Yeah. Can change our backgrounds to yellow and blue.
Oh, fucking hell. Is that still a thing?
It better be, now that
I
the
mean, I
Queen's
was told
died. We've got to go back
before.
to Ukraine, right?
No,
Yeah.
there's got to be something new.
No,
And
no,
it
they
just-
opened McDonald's in Kiev. Everything sorted. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, 8-hour queues to get a cheeseburger because the McDonald's is back open.
No way.
So the
It is an
recipes
interesting thing about
are
the
they serving McDonald's again? The
Yeah,
recipes?
yeah. McDonald's is back. I'm not sure when Starbucks reopens, but that's the big one, isn't it? You know,
That's the big one.
it's an interesting thing with the energy. It exposes the problem with the whole way the market works, because the price that we're paying now isn't based on the price that energy is today. Like
It's what
it's
you
all
bought
based
it
on
as.
what we bought it at like 6 odd months ago. And I think
But-
like what will be interesting is 6 months fast forward from now, are we going to benefit from the cheaper prices that we're paying today? And the answer is
Well,
we know we're not. You know,
It's
so
also, they stack the energy price. So it's a type of energy which they purchase as well.
yeah,
So it's something like it's the most expensive one of those energy purchases is put as the purchase price. So that's what they can base their prices off. So it's really bent.
yeah.
So when you
just
hear
like-
so when you hear that energy firms are charging, say, I don't know, a tenner, but in fact their average is more like £6, and they're like, oh yeah, it costs us a tenner because that's what how the regulations are written rather than as an average. I don't know what it's like for the actual gas units because, like you said, it's bought over so many months and it's just kind of like staggered up. So I don't know whether it's the most expensive they can put through, but I can tell you that the type of energy. So they have wind power and things like that. Offshore wind power is very expensive to add in.
Yeah,
Mm.
it's also shit and doesn't work because when it's not windy, it's not doing anything. So,
Sounds like you're a bigot.
oh, I'm perfect. I will say the whole thing is
You've
just
changed.
absolutely backwards. And you know, I think a lot of people will have looked into this with everything that's going on. And we had like an opportunity, I think it was like 97, 98, 99, to build a fuckload of nuclear power plants. And all the people that now want us using wind and water and all that really happy hippie stuff had a fucking hissy fit because they thought it was dangerous. And now look at us like fucking 15, 18 years later, we're sitting there and we don't have anything to fall back on when it's not windy and there's no water flowing. So it's just the whole thing is the most backwards thing in the world. And then people will say, well, like the cost of electricity should come down, but don't realize that electricity is generated by gas in a lot of instances. So actually the electricity price and the gas price are actually intrinsically linked as well. So you're sitting there going, why is my electricity going up? I want electricity, not gas. Well, actually we're having to use gas to make your electricity. It's just so frigging backward.
Well, in the Green Germany, because they were, 70% supplied by Russia for gas, and they cut it off because they were pissing Russia off so much. So because they're so green, they went back to coal.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the hilarious thing as well, right? Because we could do that, and coal is cheaper than gas right now. But we blew up all our coal power plants when we decided not to build the nuclear ones to build this big stand about look at us going green. And now there's no green energy anyway. So we can't even fall back on coal because we literally blew the plants up. You know, talk about shooting yourself in the knob.
And I must admit, though, just to put my 2 pence in there, it's whether this is incompetence or it is all part of the conspiracy, which is the control.
Oh,
Well,
gosh.
here's
said
a
it.
question about it. So Mrs. No Show obviously hasn't been on the show with us for 65 episodes. But if it didn't exist, and we're talking about the circumstance that someone like the WEF wanted to do a great reset, what would they do differently? That is what gets me. Like, I don't want to believe it, but what would they do differently? Food shortages, energy shortages, various wars. What else we had? Vaccines, vaccine passports, lockdowns. It's just, yeah, what would they do differently?
You're right. Let's go on to the next one. Sorry, computer's frozen.
It's so
This
this
is the people
is
breaking into their bank accounts.
Yeah.
so the
This is
Lebanese.
what I'm on for.
Yeah. Oh, this was an amazing clip. This one.
Oh, is there a clip? Oh, I've seen a few clips like this. They've been circulated. Oh, this is another one. Brilliant. So, as we know, Lebanon has suffered hyperinflation, and to stop a bank run happening, they've stopped their customers withdrawing their money. And so it's been, I think I've seen 3 or 4 different videos now where there's been people holding hostages in the bank to withdraw their money. One, which is around getting the money out so they could get an operation for their dad who had something, well, some kind of like life-saving operation. One where a woman was on top of the table, I think, with an AK-47. And there's this one, I swear there's another one with this one. And so it's happening more and more, which is really interesting because Lebanon, Middle East, you think people are thinking, let's pull in the army, and they go, oh shit, I'm not dealing with this, but they're doing it more and more. This is becoming more frequent, these kind of clips, and these are the ones which we're seeing, which people are filming. So what about the ones which we're not seeing and involve, which could involve, say, crowds or different circumstances? How often is it actually happening?
I'm just always skeptical when a tweet like that is put out and they disable replies.
Yeah.
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 You know, like why are you doing that? Like, why are you turning off replies? You know, I don't know, like reading the quote tweets is really interesting, like really, really interesting. I flicked through it before and like, it's absolutely crazy, but I just don't believe any videos I ever see on Twitter anymore.
Well, there's been a few of it.
There is the fact that this is clearly people smashing banks up to pieces.
Yeah, well, it's people smashing a window in what could be a shopping centre.
Yeah, I suppose it could be, yeah.
No, like I totally get it, and you can see it happening. And I saw there was this one woman did actually reply back to the tweet, and she was saying, you know, you think this is bad, but then when we do get our money out, or even if we can get our money out, this is what it's worth now. So you know, it's worth a fraction of what it was before. Still, it's all super scary, isn't it? You almost
this is Saifedean is Lebanese, so I want to say some pleb was saying, what actual use has Bitcoin ever had to you? And he said, it saved my family from poverty.
Yeah,
I'm from Lebanon. It went into hyperinflation, and it was actually end thread. No reply, no nothing, because the person who was bothering him had no comeback. But I think what this is really interesting for is around ownership. So with fiat, we've always assumed it's our money, but this is a prime example of it is not your money. It is a country, and we're trying to stop you running away from our currency to stop further hyperinflation. And we've seen it in Argentina and Cyprus where they've taken haircuts. So it's not your money. We just lent it to you and we're going to take 20% because we need it. You've seen it in the UK where they stop people withdrawing from BlackRock to stop a bank run, which could, you know, cause some kind of inflation. We've seen Canada where they stop people withdrawing who are on a naughty list because they're in the truckers' protest. You know, whether you agree or disagree with their protest, which was for vaccine passports for a cab, which they shared with no one else traveling in isolation, you know, I think everyone's got a right to protest. And Canada said, it's not your money, it's ours, and we're suspending your privileges, which is, you know, 2 years ago I would have said that only happens in China.
Yeah. And the irony is Canada's supposed to be one of the wokest, leftist, happiest countries.
Well, it's funny how the wokest leftist countries always end up as dictatorships.
Yeah.
Because it's fake.
It's how come does
the wokeism not real? The wokeism comes like to literally divide and conquer. And
how come far left countries which want to follow socialist approaches always end up in dictatorships? So this is the point which I said earlier, socialism, it's got some great ideals, but it's always utilized by those type of leaders like Trudeau.
The crazy thing is, right, like you sent in the video this week, I've sent the same video in about 3 times into the same chat. I don't think any of you have actually watched the video until because you clearly didn't, because otherwise you wouldn't have sent it in again. But it literally says, it's got Klaus Schwab there bragging that he has a load of influential people that have been WEF trained, World Economic Forum trained politicians. And not only does he have people like Merkel and whoever the French guy is, forgotten what his name is. Macron. He's like, they're like more the older generation, but he's really proud of the newer generation, like Trudeau and Ardern of New Zealand, And he literally advertises and says the fact that they are World Economic Forum trained politicians. They have infiltrated government. And not only do we have the leaders, we have over 50% of their cabinet as well. They were all supporting us. And even if you don't believe the conspiracy that the Great Reset is bad and all that, you've still got to ask the question, why the hell does Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum have that level of control over governments? He is an unelected bureaucrat who just sits in the middle. Who the fuck is he?
But funnily seems to be descended from Nazis. but that's been whitewashed off the internet, so apparently not.
And in reality, obviously, you know my view on all that. I don't even care about that bit. I don't care. All I care about is what gave him the right to be choosing politicians that lead countries. And no one seems to be asking that question. Like, and he's proudly bragging about the fact that he's getting more and more and more. He's getting the leaders and 50% of their cabinet WEF. And it's like, what does this mean? What does being a WEF politician mean? And
I think one of his right-hand men called most of the population of the world useless mouth breathers. Useless mouths. It's insane. Like, I think there's just too much. Like, you know my opinions from the early days of the pod, but it's just, what else would they do? I can't get past that question.
Yeah.
And I know that Mrs. Knows.
When I was talking like this, you'd be putting on your little fucking tinfoil hat. And you haven't put on a tinfoil hat for 6 months. You're like, oh fuck. Real now.
Mrs. No Show hasn't been involved because we have talked about the subject quite a lot. And I think it is, it's reared its head again, because obviously there's a bit of a different opinion, which is always interesting. So I'd love to be disproved on this one now. But I think the fact is we spend so much time looking at different topics and it comes up so many times with all these quotes and you're kind of going, something really isn't right here. It's really not right.
Okay. Well, my whole point really is this a controlled demolition of the world economy? They're destroying the food supplies, the energy supplies, the whole lot, or is this genuine competence? And
is it allowed to be a mixture of both though?
It can be.
I don't think it's ever going to be a single reason, because it's happening because the woman with the AK-47 was in Beirut. The clip that we were playing was in Lebanon. So, these things are happening in different places. I was just also trying to research why.
I was going to say, Beirut is Lebanon, isn't it?
I thought it was more Middle East. I don't know.
Lebanon is.
You might be right.
Well, geography is not the pod's strongest suit.
Well, I don't want to kill you here, but Beirut is the capital of Lebanon.
There we go.
It's not on FIFA, so we're all fucked. Right? You can't just random countries and then get Beirut, so they've never won the Champions League.
The point out just slightly, because I do believe it could be a mixture of both. I do agree. However, because they put clowns in big government positions, which then means they make silly. So I would straight away then go, okay, what percent of corruption and incompetence is it? Because in my mind, it's like 10% incompetence and 90% controlled demolition.
Wherever there's money, there's corruption. No,
I also
that's been the beginning of time. It's always going to be some form of corruption. And, it only needs to be a chink of armor. I mean, the people will still be studying the white paper for Bitcoin to still try and find where's the in route. And obviously it hasn't been found. But that's unfortunately how humans are wired. There's not a sport that's out there that nobody has ever tried to cheat. Every last thing has been corrupted.
But it's also fiat encouraged waste. The system, it's unlimited money. More of it can be printed. We've got massive taxes. So public services can fail at various projects, which we've seen over years, track and trace, NHS, schools, whatever. There's more than enough money cycling around through exorbitant taxes, through the inflation every year, but it's wasted they waste it, they make mistakes, they aren't punished because there's shitloads more money cycling back through for them to make the next mistake. So there is a high degree of incompetency. I definitely agree on that one.
Yeah, I think Gaz's point is probably the fairest, because you look at it, it's like, are they doing it in a way that's so clever, where you're like, if I put this fucktard in charge, it can actually genuinely go down as the fact that they are a fucktard, and it doesn't look contrived. But
do you know how Sri Lanka had its riots? So Sri Lanka followed a green initiative pushed by the WEF. So it's a WEF's idea. They pushed it onto the government. And so they took away all the fertilizers, all their crops died. They're having to import everything. So they got no resources and they're fucked. So they have no money. They're in massive debt. They're having to borrow more in order to bring more money in. So the government's absolutely broke. They can't afford oil. They can't afford energy. And basically they bankrupted the country because they followed the WEF. And it's literally following the green agenda in order to say no nitrogen, less carbon, less emissions. And it's been whitewashed off the WEF website, even though everyone's got all the screen grabs.
So, of course, what they were saying was never ever going to work to a sane and logical person.
Yeah, and I've also read the story from start to finish through The Economist. So I followed the story when it's first getting into trouble, and it's saying, oh, the green initiatives aren't paying off, blah, blah, blah. And it's gone to full-on protest, riots, martial law, and it's just absolutely insane. You kind of think, why would you take on a system which has never been proven, or what was only ever proven back in medieval times before fertilizers were introduced?
Well, again, it goes back to the point of it's probably a combination of both. Yes, hydropower is good, solar power is good, but you probably need a little bit of nuclear in there. You need a bit of coal.
The thing is, nuclear is clean energy.
Yeah.
That's the thing that, like, you can think what you think or whatever you want of Tony Blair, that's fine. But there is a brilliant clip of him arguing with David Cameron when they were both a bit younger and in Parliament during question time. And Tony Blair was trying to hang Cameron on what his policy would be. This was before he was elected, if he was leader of the Conservatives regards energy and regards nuclear. Because Tony Blair wanted to go and push the country down the route that France went down, and a number of other countries of building, I think he had like 12, maybe more, nuclear power stations. And it was so heavily opposed. And the Conservatives were making out like it was a green agenda that was pushing the opposition to it. But it is clean. Nuclear energy is clean energy. The challenge with nuclear is if it goes tits up, like Chernobyl. But technology has advanced so far right now that Chernobyl is an anomaly in what really could have been the solution to our problem right now. But if we go nuclear, then we're not dependent on gas. We're not dependent on oil. We're not dependent on coal. And that removed a lot of the people that the Conservatives are linked with. And you just follow the money, don't you? You know,
this is basically before Blair got corrupted.
It was 97 or 98, so it was probably just as he got elected, wasn't it?
Just look at him. He looks like he's been living in a cave, Gollum.
Yeah, I mean, he was
with Trudeau when Trudeau was first coming through. He talked a lot of sense. Blair did, and then they get corrupted by the WEF.
I doubt Trudeau ever did. I think he was always gone. Like he's from a corrupt line.
Yeah,
well, I heard an interesting thing today. Actually, is the last day of office. Bill Clinton pardoned 300 people, but to get pardoned, you pay a little bit of money, don't you? So yeah,
I didn't know that one.
50,000 apparently.
What to the person that pardoned you?
To someone.
to an
I'd be pardoning the fucking whole prison.
Yeah, I was going to say Trump pardoned. Trump did pardon a lot of people as well
on his last day.
Yeah, some really dodgy people and dodgy cases.
He didn't do Tiger King though, so
no, he didn't. But on that last day, you know that if he's pardoning certain people, there's going to be some rewards on the back end of it, and those rewards can come the next day and the day after, because guess what? I'm no longer in power, and so the things that may have been holding me back, I can now take. And
Did
I mean,
he,
how is that even a thing, by the way? Like a democratically elected leader, just on the last day, without any input from the people that elected him, just gets to choose some people that are in prison and he goes, oh, I'll let you out. How is that actually a thing? Like, oh, you raped a 3-year-old, but don't worry about it. You paid your 300 quid.
Yeah.
well, we
live in the age of cronyism, not democracy.
yeah.
It's just ridiculous that it's even a thing. Like, how
So
is it?
we've kind of taken a massive tangent from Lebanon. So I suppose the final bit which I'd say about this is it kind of, which I got hung up on, was ownership of fiat. So like your services generate revenue, your goods generate revenue, and whether that exchange is fiat, gold, Bitcoin, it is yours. And that's why looking at the fiat system now, you've got what is it? USA defaulted on their default on Russia taking their money, which is Russia's money. So that's another example. So held some of their money abroad. And then we got Argentina, Lebanon, UK, Cyprus, Canada. You got all these examples. It's not your money. And this, we talk about how complicated self-custody is in Bitcoin and how confusing it is, but it's making a massive case for it. All these different situations, and they're happening again and again at the moment. And this isn't going to be the last.
Exactly. And anyone who thinks that Lebanon, Saifedean is the guy that, oh yeah, he saved 99.7% of his wealth because he converted to Bitcoin, not leaving it in Lebanese dollars or whatever they had. The last line of that article is, it's coming to Europe.
Yeah.
So don't miss that little bit. Don't just think this is, oh, it happens over there. Like, it's coming to the UK. So if you have 100K or something, 10K, whatever you've got savings or pension in a UK bank account or retirement fund or whatever, what would you do if that eroded by 99.7%? If that would hurt you, then probably convert it to Bitcoin now, because if you don't, you're going to be one of those guys smashing through the glass of your bank trying to get your money out because they're not going to give it to you.
At least have some of your wealth in Bitcoin as a hedge against fiat.
Yeah, even if you don't believe in it, do 10%. Just do 10%. Because then even if we're wrong, then you lose 10%. Who gives a fuck? You still got your 90% to ride it on.
So European situation, you got Germany, who look like they're going to be frozen to death this winter. UK's, what's our rate of inflation? Is it 9 point something officially?
It's not, that article's not just about the inflation though. It's about the physical access to your money.
Correct.
But how does that happen?
No, but you're saying that's coming to Europe. It already has to a degree, because if you go to buy something that your bank doesn't want you to buy, they will pause that transaction.
Correct.
So it does still happen right now. Like,
I mean,
there are certain banks that won't let you buy Bitcoin, that won't let you move your money from your bank, which is your money that you have earned, into an exchange. So you have to then send it to another bank that does let you buy Bitcoin.
Yeah. I
So
mean, try getting more.
it's coming to Europe. It's already here. You're already told what you can and can't use your money for.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll only get worse as
The inflation
CBDCs.
is the cherry on the top, which says, oh, and by the fuck way, you can't use your money, and now it's worth fuck all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, but
I
you
mean,
have got all these
ultimately-
situations happening. You've got Italy as well. So with the government debt, so the bonds, people started selling them. And the rumor is, who started buying them? It was the, what's the name of the European bank? Is it
ECB.
ECB started buying the bonds. So we saw like this spike of selling them, and then boom, they all got bought up magically.
Yeah. To your point, Mrs. No, showing the fact that you can only take out a certain amount from an ATM machine per day.
You can only move a certain amount a day.
You can only go to a bank.
All of us here have bought a house. If you try to move that money just as a bank transfer, you can't do it.
Yeah.
You can't do it. You can't just say, oh, I'm buying this house, I'm just going to move my deposit, which might be 10, 20, 30,000 pounds. They're like, no, you can't have your money. You have to wait 3 days or 4 days or 5 days for a standing order to clear or whatever it is. It's ridiculous. Like,
Yeah.
You have to go in and fill some forms in, don't you?
Yeah, if you're lucky. By the
Yeah,
way.
and whilst you're there, they'll ask you a load of questions about who you are, what you do,
Where did this money come from? They don't like it coming from OnlyFans.
Yeah. I just go, look, my dick is worth $1, and they go, okay, we know this.
You want to see it?
Mr. All In, put your pants back on.
We give you 3 months, 50% discount.
Yeah. No, elements of what they're talking about and elements of what's happening in that video to a much less extreme. It's already here. We're already told what we can and can't do, what we can't buy, what we can't buy, like cars, houses, anything of any material value, by the way. Like if you want to buy stocks and shares, that's not actually approved like straight away. Like you have to go through a process where they approve you and say, okay, now you can buy stocks and shares, Mr. Roberts. Or Mrs.
Yeah.
You know, like
So-
it is already here to a degree. The inflation is the next bit. You know, it's scary, and the amount of people that just aren't awake to it, or don't notice it, or don't ask a question.
The next step is the CBDCs when they can print whatever they fucking want, and you're so locked in that you can't do anything.
Well, and they can see
You're
it.
absolutely right, because what you're saying in terms of they're not aware of it, they're not aware of it because they always think it can't happen to me, or this isn't part of my life. Like, yeah, fair enough, I can wait 5 days, or yeah, I can do this, but they're not in any danger or duress to actually need the money. So really, it's like, yeah, I can wait, but when shit's going down, you can't wait.
The thing is, you say that, but the first time I bought a house, green behind the ears, and maybe younger than a lot of other people who might have bought a house, I had no idea about this. No one sits down in school and tells you, oh, by the way, when you buy a house, you can only move like £5,000 before you have to go and like do a little dance in front of the solicitor before they'll actually give you the money. So the day that I was due to exchange, or pay the deposit and start the process of exchanging, I went to transfer the money and my bank was like, no. So I had to then send it into like 3 different bank accounts to then send it to the solicitor in chunks. And it's like, so frigging pointless, because I'm going to find a way to do it anyway, you know, but what?
But you'll do it the way we want you to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And what is the point in that? No one sits there and goes, why? Like, why can't I do this? Why can't I just send, if I want to give Gaz £100,000, why can't I just do it? You know?
And that's when you really realize, is your money free or not? Because in Bitcoin, I could send you £1 billion worth of Bitcoin
right now. Be with me in what, 5
No
minutes?
one would ask any questions. There's nothing. I could send you $1 billion.
Starbucks would ask questions.
Go in the top 1%.
Well,
It's Mrs. No Show. Do you
Well,
really
their
want
share
1,000 pumpkin lattes?
Caramel macchiato.
well, let me know if you do, because I'll put some money into Starbucks and watch their share price
That
rise.
is the thing, though, isn't it? Like that brings you back to Bitcoin, and like it's so like the reason that I was skeptical of the video is because almost every response is Bitcoin fixes this, and you start to think, but it does though. Like even if it's not real, even if that's just some nonsense bollocks, it still does fix that scenario where if I want to buy something from Gaz and we've agreed a price and we are 2 grown-ass adults and that's what I'm buying that for, I just send him the money. You know, and there is no verification, there is no stall, there is no, oh Gaz, I have to wait 5 days. Has anyone bought a car? Like, you can't just walk into a garage and buy a car.
Yeah.
Like, I bought a car for £1,500 about 6 months ago. You can't walk in, buy a car and drive that car away the same day. You can't do it. I was like, what do you mean it's not ready? They're like, oh, we just have to do some stuff. And I'm like, but what stuff? Like, I have money, you have car drives, it's MOT'd, it's taxed. Why can't I drive it away today? Can't do it.
Yeah, it's
worse in every single way. Every single way.
It's just ridiculous, and it brings us back to where we are. Like this is the solution to a problem that exists right now today. This is a problem that is here. Forget all the energy flood and all that, and the use case. Well, the use case for Bitcoin is I don't have to wait 5 days to get my money out of Bitcoin. Because if I've got shares and I want to sell those shares, can't do that on a weekend. You know, you do it at 4:58 on a Friday. You have to wait until Tuesday or Wednesday before it hits your bank account. You know,
But a lot of people don't realize any of the points which we're talking about here. And that's truly the issue, because I suppose the way which we get into hyper Bitcoinization is adoption.
Mm.
And it's the fact that you've got to hope that some absolute REM understands the point that it's not their money and it's being debased. And yeah.
Which,
Do
I
you
would
think
say
that
it's
we're being
inevitable, isn't it? Because Bitcoin is inevitable, because at the moment there's only probably like 5 or 10% of the world who have had their money hit hyperinflation, so they completely get it. But the problem is 90% of the population in the world haven't hit hyperinflation yet, so they don't quite get it. But if hyperinflation was to hit America or Europe, really, like the euro or the pound or the dollar, then suddenly people realize, oh shit, money really is fucking important. And what we work our hours and get rewarded in, we need to make sure we get rewarded in something that can hold its value. And when it's a government asset they have unlimited supply of, that is not a good store of value. And so we need, and I think ultimately Bitcoin hyperinflation is not going to happen until the euro or the pound or the dollar hyperinflates. And then that will be when a critical mass of people just go fucking hell. And it won't be just Lebanon, go like a small population, like, I don't know, 6-7 million people that lose all their money. And the majority of people in Lebanon, unfortunately, lost their money. They didn't jump onto the lifeboat of Bitcoin and sail to the Neverland. Most of them went down with the ship, just like the Titanic. They went down, they sunk. They worked their entire lives, their retirement funds, their house funds, whatever it was.
Well, this isn't on the news, is it?
No, you won't see
You
it.
know, when Greece
This is what's coming here.
defaulted, it wasn't on the news, you know, and obviously, and when Cyprus and everybody in Cyprus got money from their bank accounts taken, it wasn't constantly on the news. I'm sure it was in the news, but then like something else, because I feel like everyone's being distracted by other things. So
But that's what they
this is
do, isn't
happening.
it?
Yeah,
That's what they do.
100%.
In the real world, oh look,
This-
the Queen died.
Yeah, Queen's dead. lol.
Well, this is, you know, I think where the great reset steps in, and it's not thinking about there'll be a bunch of rich German bankers with whips telling you to pick up the piss and the shit on the floor. It'll be literally, we're going to save you with these CBDCs. You need to transfer to it now, otherwise you'll be starving and poor. And that's the next stage of fiat, is because now it's broken, we're going to trap you on it and we're going to inflate it even more to our benefit.
On the subject then, who's having their autumn COVID booster?
0.
You know, it was the funniest thing, right? Again, I was having to watch fucking terrestrial TV this morning. So I watched the Jeremy Vine show. I quite like that Jeremy Vine show. And that they bring up random topics, right? And then I was about to switch it off. I was watching Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares whilst like fucking trying to like burp the baby. And it came up with it as the adverts came on. So I channel flicked and it flicked up with the autumn COVID booster Jeremy Vine show. I was like, I'm watching this little bit just to see if this is legit. Are they going to have, number one, a panel, number two, Q&A?
Oh,
If they do,
okay, yeah.
if they do, I'll give them kudos. Guess what fucking happened, right? The channel comes on. This presenter has moved from her normal desk. She's in the corner now. There's a random doctor, and he's a black young doctor, TikTok star, on his own, and she reads 5 preset questions that he already has answers to. And when she's at the end of these questions, he's answered every single one, obviously word for word perfect, because you keep seeing him looking down to read the answer that he had to the question he knew had been asked. I'm like, okay, are they going to throw out to the audience? Are they going to throw it out to the phone-ins? Nope. They end the segment, throw back to adverts. I'm like, that was a single government big pharma advert, but get the fucking booster. There was no debate. There was no anything. It was just get the fucking booster. Here's a young black guy who's like some kind of, minority kind of thing that you should trust this guy. He's not like an old white guy. They've got a TikTok influencer. Get your booster. And I was just like, oh my God, this is what people are watching on TV.
This advert has been brought to you by AstraZeneca. Yeah,
it was disgusting. Because it's so weird, because I love that show because they throw on every subject, and quite often I disagree with two of the people and I agree with one. It's like,
well, they wanted to keep their TV licensing going, didn't they? Because we're retired. If they didn't, they would have been cancelled.
Yeah, this is the one subject that they went, you know what, we're not going to throw it to the panel. We're going to take the presenter and throw her into the corner and interview him. Like, they've never interviewed someone before. Normally they just like throw the subject out, and then there are people ringing in. They're fucking Margaret from Skegness going, I fucking got my couch and like nonsense phone calls, like complete nonsense. But for this COVID booster thing, no, all nice and segregated, no phone calls, no questions. 5 questions from the presenter, 5 questions answered. Like, what more do you need to know that this is very clearly like there's a very clear agenda here. This is not by accident. Even on these very like fringe shows, like I would never normally watch this show. It's only because my internet's down that I'm watching this bullshit. And I switch it on and I see it and I'm like, and the only reason I let it go is like, I just want to see if this is going to be bullshit. And then I watch it, I'm like, you motherfuckers, you are such bullshit. I'm like, oh my God, it's so sad, but whatever. Anyway,
cool.
Last story.
Our last story is widespread Bitcoin adoption, digital freedom can only happen through Lightning. So LN. So we talk about Lightning and we talk about the various different advances that have happened within Bitcoin, and Lightning is on what is called layer 2 of the Bitcoin layer, essentially. So you've got the main chain, which everybody talks about and is the classic third of, oh, it's so slow, but guess what, motherfuckers, it's been fixed, and it was fixed and announced to be fixed back in 2017. I think 2018 Lightning was live, and now it's there, up and running and working. So as we mentioned on the pod already, if we want to move money across the world, we can do so for pence and at super fast speed. Right.
Spot on.
I think that's
I had some relatives around today, and we're talking about my Bitcoin career and all that kind of stuff as usual. And they're like, "Oh, Bitcoin's down, Bitcoin price." I'm like, "Look, Bitcoin has never been stronger. Like on all the kind of fundamental KPIs or like metrics that you want to compare Bitcoin to that I give a shit about, Bitcoin is growing." Whether it be Lightning or nodes or users, the only one it's down on is price right now. And in reality, is it down that far on price? Like, not really. If you compare it to 5 years ago, it's still up. Compare it to 3 years ago, okay, fine. It's probably down like 70%, which may have hurt you if you bought that price. And obviously the relatives that were asking had brought around the top. So they were going, oh yeah, Bitcoin's down.
Have they sold or have they held?
They've held. They've held, and to be fair to them, the people that were asking, they were still buying. They've set up their DCA. I told them to not buy big. I told them to DCA regularly for like a 5-year period, and they've done so. They've done so. It's, to be fair, they've done it. Then it's still a little bit groggy. Like, I'm a bit down.
It's gonna hurt.
But they had no clue still that they don't know what Lightning is. None of them do. Even though I've tried to go, do you want to download a Lightning wallet? I send you some sats. They're like, does that make me money? I'm like, no, it doesn't. But like, it uses Bitcoin for what's fucking meant to be used for, you fucking dickhead. Like, it's outside the banking system. Like, it's uncensorable, like free money. And but they don't really get it. They just want the gains at the moment. And to a certain extent, they're still holding, these people anyway, my cousins that came around, they're holding their Bitcoin DCA on an exchange. They're not
Oh.
even taking it off.
Okay.
So I've still got a lot of work to do. I'm still going, you're super at risk, right? And they're like, yeah, but
I think it's you need to simplify with Lightning, because it does sound like quite a complex, but it's think of Bitcoin as your kind of like gold. It's your gold within the vault, whereas your Lightning is your Visa. It's a payment transfer network. Like you wouldn't move your full Bitcoin, which is on the like your gold, you wouldn't get someone out with a cart. You'd use like kind of like IOU before you move the gold. And that's what the whole point of the Lightning Network is.
If you had cash or money, like a large, let's just say £10,000, yeah, just for argument's sake, you know it's not wise to necessarily keep that money in the bank, but then you shouldn't necessarily just put that money in the exchange, because you, just like your Bitcoin, you wouldn't necessarily have access to that should the exchange go down or be hacked or whatever. Where would or should you keep it?
The mattress.
Are we going old school mattress? But then, you know, would you then, if you wanted to get it into society or into Bitcoin eventually, are you going to the bank each and every day to deposit? And then knowing that the bank might stop the transaction because they're seeing this go into some company called Gemini, Coinbase.
That's the scary thing about Bitcoin for a lot of people, and it really was for me as well, is that you become wholly responsible for your own money. I mean, when I first did it, I was checking that wallet 3 times a day just to make sure it was still there. And I haven't got even, well, I don't know why, but it's not like crazy amount. And I must admit, like, I can't remember the last time I even looked at my actual wallet now, because I just trust that it'll be all right. Like, you know, it's there, it's fine.
You should do updates.
Oh yeah. But that aside, like, yeah, when you log into the laptop, it says there's an update for your wallet, and then you do it. But that aside, like, I barely touch it.
What about if your wallet breaks?
But then you've got the backup, haven't you?
Have you got your steel?
I've got my stuff.
I know he's talking about steel.
But the point, and we're the prison wallet. The point about this though is that's what is, like, the exchange replaces the bank. It's that comfort blanket, isn't it? Of they're looking after it, and they're a big brand, they're a big name, and a lot of these people are getting into it after MT Gox and after all that noise has died down so much that it's almost been forgotten about. And I think it will take another big, well, it will do one of two things. You imagine there was another Mt. Gox, like, that would put Bitcoin back however many years. But it would also be a rude awakening to people that you really, really, really do need to own this. But is that not also one of the benefits that you know, that you aren't relying on this organization? But it is also the scariest thing, and I think that's the thing, isn't it? You know,
well, we all have to adopt going all in, like Mr. All In, because, you know, we know, you know, the 3 of us, 4 of us, from working for the company that we do or did, you could get a larger substantial amount come the end of, like, when there's shares also. And then you've got another choice to make. Do I hold those shares in shares, or again, do I hold it in cash? Where do I hold it? Okay, my only resort is back to Bitcoin. So then you buy more Bitcoin. Like, it's like it's a truly difficult situation of what to do, because before you know it, everything's in Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think the question is though, do you want, like, a lot of people don't want that responsibility, and that's maybe, you know, a lot of they just don't. You know, the fact that, oh, you lose your money, not many people have got £80,000 in savings, let's be honest. So the fact that the £80,000 worth of savings is guaranteed by the bank, how do they do that, by the way? You know, that's a whole other question that we can do another day. Everybody loses all their money, but we'll give it you back up to £80,000. Don't worry about it. Where's that money coming from, by the way? That is the scary thing. When I speak to my dad about it, or people on the periphery of my family, they're like, I just don't want to do that. And some of them will be like, do it for me. And I'm like, no, I can't do it for you, because then that defies the point of it. Whole point is you have to own it yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's one of the very first things I ever said on this podcast was, the ownership of your own money should be something we spend a lot of our time doing. And we've outsourced this to a third-party company that fundamentally does not have our best interests at heart.
Correct.
They are profiteering off us. And when all this kind of game of cards comes to an end and it all falls in, they're going to blame us for the reason that it fell down, when in reality it was them. So that right now we have an opportunity to take our card out the bottom of that deck and put it into Bitcoin before it falls down. And there's only going to be so many of us that are allowed to do that, because the more people that realize it, the quicker that it falls. Because it's going to fall, it's inevitable. Fiat is a house of cards that it's impossible for it not to fall. It's just, you can't build an economy based on nothing.
And every time it has.
Yeah, it's failed every single time, exactly. So yeah, it's something just to ponder and go. It's the sooner, because it's kind of crazy, right? It's just, I've got so many friends, families, and relatives that they still think Bitcoin is purely as an investment, and I try and get it through, and I see the look in their eyes. They just kind of like, they turn a little bit when I go, this is something really serious. This is not just an investment tip. I'm not trying to get you just to earn a bit more money. This is something that is an insurance against the existing financial system collapsing. And when it collapses, everything fucking collapses. And your retirement fund, property, stocks and shares, fucking everything. That is why years ago I sold everything I pretty much had and I put it into Bitcoin, and I've continued on that journey, and I don't think I'm wrong. But the majority of people, even when I say it in that simple terms, go, okay, I'll put 1% of my worth in it. I'm like, well, it's better than nothing, but it still pretty much says you don't believe me, because you still think 99% of you says the existing system is going to continue and be fine.
It probably, I think, it'll continue long enough for me to get to where I want to get to, or before I die, and then I don't care afterwards.
Is that you saying that, or your relatives?
I think I'm speaking for people where they're thinking like that, where they're like, it's like insurance, or I'll buy it when I need it.
Yeah.
But for right now, I won't need it because I'll be okay. I won't get sick. I won't get ill.
But I'll be okay. Not in my lifetime problem, isn't it? Like you speak to my dad, he'll be like, that I get that a little bit. He's a commercial director for a company. He knows what he's talking about. He's like, it's very unlikely to happen in my lifetime.
Exactly.
That's his kind of stuff. He's like, I'm not saying that won't happen, but I think I'll miss it. Probably just about, maybe by 20 years or whatever. So
correct. That's how I think people think, because I'm the same, by the way. Me, Mr. Olin. I actually, you go.
I know you are.
You go all in, but I actually.
I'm trying to convert you. I'm trying to save you a lot of money.
I actually try not to, because I to tell people, because I don't want to come across as too preachy, and I'm like, well, I've got countless hours of proof of work, if you don't believe me, and various different books that we've read, and if you ask me about it, I'll tell you about it and why I think you should convert into it. But I know you're not going to listen anyway, so I won't. But if you ask me and you approach me, then I'll say, this is what you should do. But I don't think a lot of people just don't want to hear it.
Or you can just tell them they're not ready.
And have fun staying poor.
It's gonna be really interesting when we all sit down for our Christmas meal at like 85, 87 upstairs at the grill, and someone's gonna be right. You know, that's the thing, isn't it? Like someone's gonna be right. Because by that age we won't care. You know, like that really is the end of days.
Yeah.
So at that point, you know, we'll either be looking back going, oh, thank fuck we did that. Or we'll be looking back going, well, I made us a little bit of money and we were safe in case of, and maybe my family will be all right. But it is like I said, it's inevitable. It is inevitable, right?
Well, the alternative is you're just like everybody else that hasn't done it.
Well, what time frame are we working to? Are we working to Lebanon, which is like right now, or are we working to, you know, something?
It's hard to tell, because my worry is CBDCs lock everyone in and it becomes really bad, you know, which could be 10 years or so. But I don't think it's a long term time frame. I think things are just unwinding too quick.
I think 15 to 20 years. Unfortunately, I do think that it's going to happen, but just not as quick as we would like it to happen, and the adoption of things. So by that point, Bitcoin will be, you know, just under 30 or thereabouts. And at that point, that's when we'll then go, you know, into hyper Bitcoinization. So, you know, ultimately, I'd love it to happen tomorrow, but I just don't think so. And things like CBDCs will just be a distraction that will prolong the inevitable.
I think, you know, countries are going to have to move off a fiat standard in the next 5 years. And it's going to be in CBDCs because lock-in, it's literally the last chance they're taking you hostage. Then it's a kidnapping.
Well, they'll want to. Not because they have to, they'll want to, because they'll see that it's an opportunity for them to be able to control people and what they, you know, buy.
I would argue, but it's not a want, it's a need. I think it's getting to a point where people will be moving off the fiat, and like we're seeing more and more countries it happening to, because the fiat standard is failing as standard. You know, they want to because they want to prolong their rule, but it's also they need to, because without it, they're nothing.
Because it's weird, right? Because around by me at the moment, right? If you want to be self-sustained on a little piece of land, the easiest way to do that would be to have some cows and some chickens. Cows give you beef and milk. Chickens obviously give you chicken, and they give you eggs. Oh no, we lost Mr. No Show. So
no different than normal.
I know. Can't believe he left just right before the end. I must have bored him. But it's very interesting how nearly every single farmer around by me is avoiding cows and chickens. Oh. And when you ask them why they're avoiding it, it's government regulation. And the government regulation is avian flu around chickens and TB around cows. If you have these animals, you have to check them constantly. And every like 3 to 6 months, you have to check that these animals have those things. If they do, your whole farm gets shut down. However, if you have goats, sheep, any other animal, which are not as effective at all at farming, then there's no checks. And apparently these animals can't, and the hilarious thing is, right, there's no proof that avian flu goes from birds to humans. There's no scientific proof that TB will transmit from cows to humans. However, there's a suspicion that it does. Hence, the farmers around me are getting rid of their cows, getting rid of their chickens, and they're putting their animals in place. And it's just centralizing who owns the cows and who owns the chickens, and it's huge industrial complexes. No small farmer owns this anymore. So suddenly now, as a human kind of normal consumer, you're reliant on a couple of providers, and if they want to switch them off or on, we're at the complete beck and call of a couple of companies, because all the smaller providers have gone. They've just gone, fuck chickens and fuck cows. We don't want to deal with them because TB, avian flu. Push it on someone else. And then suddenly the government of certified providers are the ones that go, don't worry, we'll get you. And suddenly they don't have any avian flu, they don't have any TB, and they're the ones that give out the beef and the chicken and the eggs. But guess what? That also does give them the ability to do, which is
control the price
and also just the general supply, which is if they want to create a shortage of a thing and go, oh, there's no chicken this week, they only have to make 3 phone calls. Before, they'd have to make 3,000 phone calls to all these various chicken farms to go, don't send out any chicken this week. But guess what? They've already shut them down. And it's nuts because I'm literally working with a couple of farmers locally right now to go, let's start this back up. Let's try and get some cows and some sheep and some chickens. Let's get them going again. And like fuck their regulations. But the problem is you can't really fuck it completely. You need the vets to come around and check all your animals, and it costs you money to have all your birds test for avian flu and your cows tested for TB. It costs you decent money. And it virtually makes it where it's financially not sustainable to do, other than if you just go, fuck it, we're going to do it anyway, which is the way I want to go. just fuck them. But it's kind of nuts to go, once you enter this world of just going, can you really be self-sustainable on a very basic level? The amount of rules and regulations you knock into, it looks very, very sus to go. It looks like they're doing it to a degree where they want to make it that you can't do it. That it's essentially they're just pushing food supply into a huge industrial complex, and if you don't buy from there, then you can't buy from anywhere because it's too risky. And in reality, it's not too risky at all. They just don't want you to buy from that because there's too much supply, which you could then buy from in the advent of some kind of government shutdown. You just go to your local farmer. But guess what? If your local farmer got shut down 5 years ago because he got paid to do so, you can't do it.
Yeah.
So
do you think this is kind of like the CBDCs of the farming industry in terms of the trickery and the deceit of underhandedly getting them to transfer one thing to take another, which is the alternative animals rather than the primary animals, and therefore losing control and ownership, and all of a sudden they're now dependent on, as you say, the 3 main companies that will handle.
It really is, because what they're also getting promoted to sell instead is like grain and stuff. So what ends up happening is a load of cow and like chicken land is getting redone into grain land, and a lot of the grain just gets exported offshore. So you suddenly end up with like, what are they doing? And so when you look at that from a macro level, like what's happening here, there's very obviously a purposeful shortage of chicken and beef, and then they're creating an excess demand of grain, and they're exporting most of that to other countries. So there's a massive amount of farming land that could be used to produce beef and chicken that have massive shortages of that resource, but instead they're creating grain they don't need and then exporting it. And a lot of the exports just end up in massive warehouses that never get used. But government subsidies from both sides pay for it to be produced and pay for it to be brought. And you go, this feeds into the controlled demolition. It's everyone around me is just going, it's really hard. Like there's a lot of people like looking to do the sustainable farming thing, sustainable living. There's people that are creating various sheep, like breeds of sheep for carpets and blankets, and we're all just trying to like get together and go, what do people need? I'm trying to create like various vegetables that what people want, and like to trade it and barter it with various people. But we're a small community, and then obviously I'm massively brought into this, but the majority of people have no clue what's going on. And at one point, like your your supermarket is going to have fucking nothing in it. Your electricity's going to go off, your internet's going to go off, like water's going to go off. What are you going to do then? You can just subscribe to your CBDCs unless.
It's a nice place to
Yeah, on
end
that
it.
positive note.
You've all had enough. You've had enough. All right, I've had enough.
So-
Let's fucking go. Let's fucking.
Let me end it as in good traditional style. This podcast, pod number 68, was brought to you by Mr. All In, aka the $1 Trillion Man, Dr. Evil 10%, aka the People's Champ, myself, Sir Neverlook, the excellence of execution, and unusually, but not unusually, Mrs. No Show was here, now not here. Surprise, surprise. But this has been the 4Bs, and we're signing out. Peace.